You're going to laugh when you hear how badly this plan collapsed. And then you're going to feel the anger underneath it. Someone decided you needed to be tested. Not approached honestly. Not spoken to directly. Tested. He chose an attractive friend used to entering a room and changing its temperature. The assignment was simple. Get close to you, pull your attention away from what you were building, and report back whether you could be tempted. But the first card on the table is the Lovers reversed. Psychologically, this card is not predicting your future. It exposes a conflict between attraction and integrity. It represents a choice made from insecurity, a connection complicated by divided loyalty, and two people discovering that desire becomes dangerous when nobody is honest about where it began. That is exactly what happened. The sender believed he was creating distance between you and your focus. Instead, he created closeness between you and the person he trusted to distract you. He thought his friend would become the temptation. He never considered that you would become the temptation for his friend. And here is the first detail to remember. This man did not choose a random person. He chose the friend he privately compares himself to. The better smile. The easier confidence. The person who rarely has to pursue attention because attention usually arrives first. He expected you to notice. He expected you to react. He expected you to prove him right. You didn't. You were warm, but you were not impressed into losing yourself. You did not perform excitement. You did not rush to make the interaction mean something. You gave the friend the same grounded attention you give anyone else, and that calm response created the first crack in the plan. People who are accustomed to being desired can usually tell when someone is trying to hide desire. But you were not hiding it. You simply were not chasing. That difference disturbed him. The friend arrived prepared to study you. Within minutes, he was monitoring himself. His voice changed. His timing slipped. He forgot one question he had planned to ask. And when he left, the person occupying his mind was not the man who sent him. It was you. The Lovers reversed says the real problem is no longer whether the original plan worked. The real problem is that loyalty has already begun to split, and the next card shows exactly how that split begins. The Page of Swords reversed. Psychologically, this card represents observation without maturity. Questions asked for the wrong reasons. Information collected, distorted, or withheld because the person carrying it is no longer neutral. The friend was supposed to report back quickly. Did you flirt? Did you seem distracted? Did you ask about the sender? Did you look impressed? Simple questions. But his answers stopped being simple. He waited before replying. He gave vague descriptions where direct ones would have been easier. He over-explained harmless details, then moved past the moments that had actually affected him. You were nice. You were focused. Nothing really happened. That last sentence came too fast. Nothing really happened. But people do not rush to establish that when nothing happened. The sender noticed the delay. He noticed the careful wording. He noticed that his friend remembered what you were building. The exact thing that made you laugh. And one small comment you had made about yourself. Details he should not have carried away if the interaction meant nothing. Then the sender made a joke. Something about how you probably forgot everything the moment the more attractive friend walked into the room. The friend did not laugh, not naturally. Instead, he corrected him. You don't know that, 4 words, quietly delivered. But the energy between them changed immediately. Because the friend had been sent to examine you, not protect you. The Page of Swords reversed reveals how a person exposes themselves through the way they control information. He was no longer reporting what happened. He was editing the story to protect the part of the experience that now belonged to him. He left out the way your calmness unsettled him. He did not mention that you looked directly at him, without trying to hold his attention. He avoided describing the moment he realized you were listening to understand him, not to impress him. And his first act of disloyalty was not pursuing you. It was withholding the truth. He was supposed to study your behavior and return with evidence. Instead, he returned defensive, distracted, and strangely protective of your dignity. The sender could hear the difference. His friend was not describing you like someone who had completed an assignment. He was describing you like someone trying not to reveal that the assignment had become personal. And that is when suspicion began. Not when his friend said something flattering about you. When his friend became too careful not to. And the next card explains why the sender cannot leave the situation alone. The Eight of Cups reversed. Psychologically, this card represents someone trying to walk away while remaining emotionally attached to what they claim no longer matters. It is unfinished business disguised as indifference. A person looking backward so often that eventually everyone notices. The sender had already received his answer. At least, that is what he told himself. You had not abandoned your focus. You had not become visibly captivated. His friend had completed the assignment. The plan should have ended there. It didn't. Now he began studying the person he had sent to study you. He noticed how quickly his friend looked up when your name was mentioned. He noticed the supposedly casual questions. Did you say anything afterward? Have you seen her again? Did she ask why I wasn't there? Each question was delivered like it meant nothing. But questions reveal direction, and all of his friend's attention was pointing back toward you. The sender started testing him in smaller ways. He mentioned you without context just to watch the reaction. He changed one detail from the original conversation to see whether his friend would correct it. He did, immediately. No, that's not what she said. Then silence. Because the correction came from memory, and the speed of it exposed how closely that memory was being protected. The Eight of Cups reversed is not about someone returning physically. It is about the mind refusing to leave. The friend had walked away from the interaction, but the interaction had not left him, and now the sender was trapped. He could not accuse his friend of becoming interested without admitting why the two of you met. He could not demand distance without exposing possession. He could not ask for complete honesty when the entire situation had begun with dishonesty. Every question carried a risk. How much do you remember about her? Why do you care? What are you planning? And beneath all three was the question he was too proud to say directly. Did I send you toward the person I was afraid of losing? That is the part he never calculated. He chose this friend because he believed attractiveness could be used like a tool. Reliable, predictable, under his control. But tools do not develop preferences. People do. The sender expected competition from strangers. Men he could dismiss. People outside the circle whose motives would be obvious. He never expected competition from the person standing closest to him. So the plan began folding inward. The observer became observed. The sender started watching his friend. But he still had not realized that his friend had started watching him too. And the next card reveals what his friend begins to recognize. The Knight of Wands reversed. Psychologically, this card represents action driven by ego before honesty has had time to speak. A reckless move disguised as confidence. Someone creating motion because standing still would force them to admit what they actually feel. The friend began replaying the assignment. Not your reaction, the sender's instructions. Why test someone you do not care about? Why choose your most attractive friend? Why demand a report afterward? The questions no longer led back to you. They led back to him. The sender had presented the plan casually, like an experiment. Like he was curious whether you could be distracted, but emotionally untouched by the result. That explanation stopped making sense. Indifferent people do not design tests. They do not select the person most likely to trigger a reaction. They do not wait impatiently for details, correct timelines, or repeatedly ask whether their name came up. The friend saw the contradiction. The sender claimed he wanted to expose your weakness. But he was the one afraid of approaching you directly. He claimed he wanted proof that you were easily tempted. But what he really wanted was proof that he could still affect you without risking rejection. That was the engine underneath the plan. Not confidence. Avoidance. The Knight of Wands reversed exposes the difference between boldness and impulsive control. The sender wanted movement without vulnerability. He wanted you unsettled while he remained protected. And now his friend understood why the description of you had felt wrong from the beginning. He had expected vanity. He found self-control. He had expected you to respond to appearance without discernment. You noticed him, but you also noticed the intention behind his questions. He expected easy attention. You gave him boundaries. The sender had described you as someone whose focus could be stolen by the right face at the right moment. But when the friend met you, your attention did not feel cheap. It felt deliberate, and that changed his attraction. Because now he was not only thinking about who you were, he was thinking about why someone had needed to misrepresent you before allowing him to meet you. The plan had been presented as protection. It looked more like jealousy. It had been presented as proof. It looked more like fear. And the friend began watching the sender for the same thing the sender had asked him to watch in you. A reaction. He found one every time your name appeared. That was when curiosity became a moral problem, because the friend now knew something about your situation that you did not. And his next mistake was not falling for you. It was deciding that you deserved to know why he appeared. And the next card shows why knowing the truth does not make speaking it easy. The Hanged Cat. Psychologically, this card represents suspension. A person caught between two choices, unable to move forward without surrendering the position that once kept them comfortable. It is the moment when waiting stops being passive and starts becoming a decision of its own. The friend opened a message to you. He typed one sentence. There's something I should explain. Then he deleted it. Too abrupt. Too revealing. He tried again. Hey, it was good meeting you. That sounded safer. It also sounded dishonest. Because he was no longer contacting you simply because the conversation had gone well. He was contacting you while carrying information that could change how you understood the entire interaction. Casualness would not make that cleaner. It would only repeat the original problem. Another hidden motive. Another conversation where you were expected to respond without being given the full context. So he stopped typing. The Hanged Cat represents the discomfort of seeing a situation differently while still being tied to the people who helped create it. The friend could now understand your position. You had been placed inside a test you never agreed to take, and neither man had the right to decide what you should know based only on what protected them. But telling you would cost him. If he confessed, he betrayed his friend. If he remained silent, he became complicit. And if he pursued you without explaining why he appeared, then whatever genuine attraction he felt would become another hidden agenda. There was no comfortable choice left. The sender sensed it. Not because his friend admitted anything, because guilt changes behavior. The friend became quieter when your name appeared. Less willing to participate in jokes. More careful about agreeing with the version of you he had originally been given. So the sender began warning him away. She's complicated. Nothing happened anyway. Don't make this bigger than it was. Then finally, it was just a joke. But calling it a joke did not make the plan harmless. It only revealed how urgently he wanted it dismissed before you could examine it. The friend heard possession underneath every warning, not concern. Possession. Then you appeared again. Maybe it was a neutral message, maybe a brief acknowledgement. Nothing flirtatious, nothing dramatic. Just enough to show that you remembered him. And suddenly, pretending the encounter meant nothing became impossible. He opened the unfinished message again. There's something I should explain. This time, he did not delete it. But before he could send it, the original sender made a move of his own. And the next card shows what that move was designed to accomplish. The Queen of Wands. Psychologically, this card represents visible confidence, magnetic attention, and the awareness that presence can influence a room. But in this situation, it also exposes what happens when someone tries to reclaim attention by performing certainty they do not actually feel. The sender became visible again, suddenly. A message after silence. A reaction to something you posted. A question about what you were working on, delivered as though he had always been interested. He found reasons to appear where you might notice him. He offered help you had not requested. He remembered details he had previously acted too detached to care about. The timing was not accidental. He could sense his friend moving toward honesty, so he tried to reach you first. Not with the truth, with attention. That distinction matters. The Queen of Wands does not need to force people to notice her. Her presence speaks before performance becomes necessary, but the sender was performing. He wanted to appear confident enough that you would never examine why he had disappeared, why his interest had returned, or why the attractive friend had entered the situation at all. Then the friend became more attentive too. But differently. His messages were less polished. His pauses were longer. He would begin asking something, reconsider it, then choose a safer question. The sender was trying to control your perception. The friend was questioning whether he deserved access to it. One moved closer because he feared being replaced. The other hesitated because he knew you had been misled. And both men noticed the difference. The sender watched how quickly his friend responded when you appeared. The friend noticed how suddenly the sender began offering you the attention he had withheld before. Neither called it competition. They called it coincidence. A helpful message. A casual check-in. A reason to be nearby. But competition does not always announce itself through arguments. Sometimes it appears through timing. Through unusually specific acts of kindness. Through one person speaking slightly louder when the other enters the conversation. And here is where the test fully reversed. They had expected you to monitor attention. Now they were doing it. They expected you to interpret every signal. Now they were studying your pauses, your replies, and which name made you look up first. You were no longer the person being measured. Their reaction to not being chosen immediately was measuring them. Then one of them mentioned something small about you. A private detail. Something you had shared during that first conversation. The sender went still. Because only his friend was supposed to know it. And the next card reveals what neither of them understood about your silence. The Eight of Swords. Psychologically, this card represents a situation controlled by assumptions. People behaving as though you cannot see the exits because they have confused your stillness with helplessness. But your calmness was never ignorance. It was discernment. You noticed the rehearsed questions during that first conversation. The slight delay before the friend asked something that sounded too specific to be spontaneous. The way he already understood the outline of a situation you had never explained to him. You noticed the sender too, how quickly he appeared afterward. How casually he asked whether anything interesting had happened. How carefully he studied your answer while pretending the answer did not matter. The timing was wrong. The curiosity was too precise. And now a private detail had passed from one man to the other. The sender went still because he realized his friend had said too much. The friend went still because he realized you had heard it. And you? You did not rush to fill the silence for them. That is the part they were not prepared for. The Eight of Swords often describes a person surrounded by a story they did not create. But psychologically, the restriction is maintained by what everyone assumes that person knows. They assumed you were waiting to be chosen. They assumed you were confused by the sudden attention. They assumed you could not see that their timing was connected. You could. You simply understood that people reveal more when they believe their strategy remains hidden. So you watched. You did not reward the sender's sudden visibility. You did not reassure the friend that his hesitation was charming. You did not accept increased attention as evidence of sincerity. You let both men sit inside the uncertainty they had designed for you, and that uncertainty began changing them. Their simping was not just more messages, more compliments, or more reasons to be near you. It was the loss of emotional control. The sender could not manipulate you back into the role he had written. The friend could not pretend his attraction was innocent while withholding why he approached you. One felt threatened by your composure, the other felt exposed by your perception. Neither feeling made them evil, but neither feeling excused what they had done. Then you looked at the sender, not angrily, not dramatically. You did not need either. You asked one question. Why did he already know that about me before we met? The friend stopped breathing for a second. The sender's expression changed. Because you had exposed the entire plan without accusing anyone of anything. And neither man was prepared for how little emotion the truth required. And the next card shows what happens when the story can no longer survive another lie. The Ten of Swords reversed. Psychologically, this card represents the moment after a damaging truth has already landed. The ending has begun, but someone is still trying to delay it. Not because the facts are unclear, because accepting them would require accountability. The sender answered first. It wasn't like that. A sentence designed to erase the shape of something without explaining what it actually was. He called it curiosity, then concern, then a joke that had gone too far. Each explanation contradicted the one before it. You did not interrupt. You let him keep talking. That made it worse, because every new excuse revealed another version of the same motive. He wanted to influence your behavior without exposing his own feelings. Then he said the friend had misunderstood the assignment. The friend looked at him and corrected one detail. No, you told me to see if I could pull her attention away. There it was, not the whole truth. But enough of it. The Ten of Swords reversed represents what happens when one honest sentence removes the protection from every dishonest one that came before it. The sender stopped minimizing. His jealousy surfaced before his honesty did. He said you had become distant, too focused, too difficult to read. He wanted to know whether your self-control was real or whether someone more attractive could break it. But underneath that explanation was something simpler. Your composure made him feel replaceable. Your ability to continue without chasing him made him feel powerless. So he created a situation where your reaction could reassure him without requiring him to risk rejection. Then the friend admitted his part. He had accepted because the assignment flattered him. He liked being chosen as the person considered irresistible. He expected to walk in, collect a reaction, and leave with his ego confirmed. But you did not respond like an audience. You responded like a person deciding whether his presence deserved your attention. That disrupted him. His attraction carried guilt. The sender's attraction carried possession. One admitted that meeting you changed him. The other admitted that losing control of you frightened him. And still, you did not compete. You did not ask which man wanted you more. You refused the triangle entirely. That refusal was what finally brought it down. Then both men told you what they wanted. One wanted another chance. The other wanted the opportunity to explain everything without interruption. But neither confession answered the question forming behind your silence. And when you finally asked it, desire was no longer the issue. And the next card changes the question completely. The Two of Cups reversed. Psychologically, this card represents connection without alignment. Attraction may be present, but trust is not. Two people can want closeness while behaving in ways that make closeness unsafe. So you asked the question neither man had prepared to answer. Which one of you was going to tell me before you wanted something from me? Silence, not confusion. Recognition. Because both of them understood the difference. The sender wanted another chance after realizing his plan had failed. The friend wanted honesty after realizing his feelings had become real. But neither man had chosen transparency before transparency became necessary. That mattered. The Two of Cups reversed does not say there is no connection. It reveals that connection alone cannot repair an imbalance created by secrecy. Feelings may explain why someone behaves badly. They do not erase the behavior. And attention is not automatically devotion. More messages do not equal accountability. Jealousy does not equal commitment. Competing for your response does not mean either person is prepared to respect your decision. That is where the word simping becomes less flattering than it first appears. Yes, both men were distracted. Both were watching you. Both were reacting to every pause, every boundary, every moment you did not immediately choose one of them. But frantic pursuit is not the same as care. Care can tolerate uncertainty without punishing you for it. Care tells the truth before the truth becomes useful. Care understands that an apology does not purchase access. The sender struggled with that. He became defensive. He reminded you that nothing serious had happened. He said the plan had gotten out of control. He implied that his feelings should matter because jealousy proved he cared. But jealousy did not give him a claim. It only revealed what he feared losing. The friend responded differently. He did not ask you to reward him for confessing. He admitted that telling the truth after being exposed was not the same as choosing honesty from the beginning. Then, he said something the sender could not. You don't owe me a chance. That sentence did not repair everything. But it revealed maturity. You set the boundary clearly. No more tests. No more information passing between them as though your life belonged to their private conversation. No more sudden attention without an honest explanation for where it came from. If either man wanted to remain near you, his behavior would have to become consistent after the competition ended. Not louder, cleaner. The sender heard the boundary as an obstacle. The friend heard it as a consequence, and that difference became visible almost immediately. One man tried to impress you again. The other did something far more revealing, and the final card reveals which response was still controlled by ego. The King of Wands reversed. Psychologically, this card represents confidence that becomes performance when control is threatened. A person who knows how to command attention, but not how to accept that attention cannot be demanded. The sender became louder, more compliments, more promises. Bigger gestures designed to make the situation feel romantic enough that you might forget how it began. He wanted to prove that he knew you better, that he cared first. That his jealousy meant the connection between you had always been deeper than he admitted. But every attempt carried the same hidden message. Choose me so I can stop feeling defeated. That was not accountability. It was another test. Only now, the result he wanted was your forgiveness. The friend did something different. He stepped back, not to manipulate you into missing him, not to create scarcity. He stepped back because he finally understood that wanting access to you did not make access appropriate. Then he told you everything. The original conversation, the exact assignment. The parts he had minimized. The moment his intentions changed. He did not protect his image. He admitted that his ego made him accept the plan. He admitted that attraction made him delay the truth. He apologized without turning the apology into a request. No pressure, no dramatic promise, no expectation that honesty should earn an immediate reward. The King of Wands reversed shows the difference between influence and control. One man still believed the strongest performance should win. The other accepted that there might be nothing to win, and you did not have to choose either of them. That is where the plan truly backfired. Yes, both men were thinking about you. Both were humbled. Both had lost the emotional distance they believed they possessed. But the collapse was larger than two men simping. They designed the test to prove your focus could be stolen. Instead, their focus broke first. Their loyalty split. Their confidence became unstable. Their friendship changed under the weight of a competition neither man had expected to enter. And you remained exactly where you had been from the beginning. Grounded, observant, unwilling to chase attention simply because it had become intense now. The lovers reversed makes complete sense. It was never only about divided attraction. It was about the choice integrity eventually demands when desire begins inside dishonesty. They thought the attractive friend would expose your weakness. He exposed the sender's insecurity. They thought attention would make you lose control. It made both of them lose theirs. You were never the temptation that ruined the plan. You were the truth that revealed what the plan was made of.